Précis-writing is a term ordinary people don't know, but it is an activity which is extremely important in the United Nations and in particular for the International Law Commission. The International Law Commission is a body of 34 experts whose task is, according to its statute, the progressive development and codification of international law. And in order to do that, Précis-writing is important, so that everybody has a summary of the debate as it has happened so far, in order to build on further debates.
These summary records are quite full. They set out in detail all the statements that are made, and it is the only record of those statements. They're done very well. We check them very carefully. So they're an invaluable resource for to know the history of the Commission, to know the practices of the Commission, and most importantly, to interpret the outcome of the Commission's work. In the last few weeks, we had a debate about whether to refer to academic writings in our product, and I argued strongly that we shouldn't. And I was able to find a summary record from 1966, when the Commission had had exactly the same debate in relation to the law of treaties and reached the same conclusion. I know that there's a move to reduce summary records for some organs, but that really can't be done for the International Law Commission if we're to retain our authority as the central law-developing organ of the United Nations.
One of the great perks of working in the English section is that we get to do Précis-writing, which is a little bit different from the typical translation work. It means we get to see the UN in action. When I used to work in New York, I worked on the translation of ILC reports, and that was always very interesting because they would make complicated legal arguments, and it was interesting to follow their line of reasoning. But here in Geneva, I get to go and actually see them operate. The point of a summary record is to strike a balance between making it very user-friendly, which means it has to be concise, but at the same time, because in ILC these are very subtle and complex arguments with nuances, we have to be very careful not to lose any of that. We can't skip any of the logical steps in an argument.
Something that we particularly pay attention to for ILC records is referencing. So things like making sure we use the correct titles of conventions or legal cases that are mentioned by the Commission members, checking sources to ensure that any quotes that are used are rendered accurately.
It's very important, the aspect of teamwork, because one member of the team will be in the meeting room for approximately 1/4 of the meeting, so we'll need to communicate with other members to find out what happened in other parts of the meeting, perhaps to make sense of what occurred in their section. In terms of linguistic skills, members can take the floor in any one of the 6 languages of the United Nations. So in our case, the Précis writer will have to translate those words into English if the speaker uses a language other than English. And so strong linguistic skills are needed there.
I've noticed that often they will look back on summary records from years ago to see what previous Commission members have had to say about something. No doubt years from now, future Commission members will be looking at the records that we produce. So we really have to get it right.
They are a means of making the Commission's deliberations accessible to a wide readership. So we are very proud to play a part in doing that, and in that respect, promoting knowledge of and interest in the progressive development of international law and its codification.